is finishing up a new textbook on psychology of gender. And Nikki Newton, who works in Canada and given our brave new world could not get a visa. So some of you might think, well, why are we having Pathways to Professor here at SPICY? We should be out there really concentrating on social justice things right here, right now. Well, the rationale behind it is kind of like United Airlines. I mean, the good part of United Airlines, which is you've got to put on your own oxygen mask first before you help others who are dependent upon you. And if you are not a full professor as an academic, you are not really living up to what you can really contribute to the advancement of feminist psychology and social justice. So that's why we're doing this session and why we're doing it at SPICY. We also have people who are tuning in via the latest technology that Asia and Joy have set up. So put on your oxygen masks and I will introduce you to our panelists. And we'll start with Heather Bullock. And I don't have my glasses, so Heather is at University of California, Santa Cruz. And, goodness. Yes. Thank you. Don't laugh. Someday you will need these too. Okay, and Heather focuses on social psychological dimensions of economic injustice and is especially concerned with discrimination that occurs in settings in which low-income groups rely on others for assistance. So she is a major player in getting psychology to think about social class. Sitting next to her is Liz Cole, whose research is located at the intersection of psychology and women's studies within specific social and cultural practices such as how individuals simultaneously experience racial, class, and or gender identities. And you know Liz's name very well from her work on intersectionality theory. And last but not least is Dr. Yolanda Flores Neiman, who is now at the University of North Texas, and she has extensive administrative experience in academia. And her research interests include the effects and social ecological context of stereotypes and tokenism, and she also has done a great deal of work on intersectionality, and her co-edited book, Presumed Incompetent, is something that I really recommend to all of you for looking at personal stories of experiences of being a minority individual within the academy. So to get us started, our committee sort of brainstormed on some of the questions. Yeah, just some of the questions. Could you be my assistant? Thank you. Some of the questions that come to mind when we think about going from a tenure, associate professor, Yahoo, to going to full professor. So what's the difference between coming up for tenure and going for promotion? And one thing I noticed this morning when I was thinking about this is, coming up for tenure, that is, that bus comes at you in your 6th year, whether you want it to or not, versus going for promotion. You have to decide to do that. The institution doesn't say, hey, how about if we consider you for promotion? So another question that comes up is, what time frame is realistic? For example, do I have to wait until others who are more senior to me go up? Is there some, do I take a number? Another question is, who should make my outside reviewers be? And are these reviewers going to be the same people who reviewed me for tenure or somebody else? And another question, how do I find out about the real criteria for promotion at my institution? You all know from coming up for tenure, there's what's published and then there's everything else. What about for full professor? And then last but not least, a question that might be really playing on your mind is, why do I have to even bother with this promotion at all? I've got tenure. And we will be addressing that as well as these other questions through this next hour. So what we did was we asked our panelists to consider this set of questions and just give us a little brief introduction, each of them. And then, like most symposia here, we would really like to have most of our time be questions that come from the audience or from our people who are remotely connected to us. So I don't know, we didn't flip a coin to see who would. Oh yeah, and we've got our note cards. Joy and Asia will, if you would, if you've got questions or themes or issues that you would like, if you would write these down, what we're going to try to do in the way of efficiency is collect these and try to pull out what are the things that are the most pressing for people. So, all right, Yolanda will begin.
Hi everybody, thank you for being here. Stephanie said I had a lot of administrative experience. I'm going to draw on that as I speak with you about this issue of going to the professor. And the answer to should I is, oh, please do. Please do. Yes. Why? Why does full professor matter? Because power matters. And the rank of a professor is a rank of power compared to associate professor. As dean and as senior vice provost in both of those positions, I had occasion to have a group of full professors. I have been so excited. I have to turn this off. I had a group of full professors come and see me about a situation. And that was power sitting in front of me. There was no way that group was going to be ignored. It didn't matter whether or not I agreed with what they had to say or not, they were full professors. So power, the politics of the rank, it all matters. So I think you should go up to full professor. And also, in terms of administration, if you have any interest in being a dean, really department chair too, although some universities hire department chairs who are not full professors, it's certainly being a dean or a provost or president. You want that credential. It's a basic credential. So I'll leave that at that. Now, the other thing I want to talk about for a couple of minutes, or just a minute before I pass it on, is finding out the real criteria. It's been heartbreaking for me in an administrative capacity, and I'm not now, I've gone back to faculty. And it was so heartbreaking to have people sitting in front of me, and it was almost always women, who were stuck at the rank of associate professor because they had gotten it in their minds that service was going to matter. They had been department chairs, they had been presidents of the faculty senate, they had worked with advancement or raising money. These are women who had done incredible things for the university. And somehow they've gotten the message that that was going to matter because they had put aside their scholarship to do this work, this critical work the university cannot function without service. Do not be deceived about this. I have yet to find an institution where service is a major criterion for a professor. It is. I'm sure they're out there, but I can tell you that they are rare. I've been in 3 universities, and it just doesn't happen. So if we want to do the right thing, we want to help our university, we want to help our department, but do it with eyes open. Do it with eyes open. In one case, I actually was able to negotiate having somebody, this was a person who just got tenure, and her department chair wanted to put her in charge of an entire program. So I negotiated with that. We would write a letter, submit it to her department chair, and said, this is a criterion, your major criterion for a professor. It's doable, but go in with eyes open. I'll leave it at that because my colleagues have a lot to say.
I'm at the University of Michigan. I'm in the College of Literature, Science, and Arts. And our college has had 2 task forces in the last 10 years, looking explicitly at the associate professor rank and what is that experience like and what are the barriers and opportunities for promotion. And as part of those task forces, they surveyed the literature, they did focus groups, they did surveys, and there were consistent findings in both our task forces and in our literature review. And what all of these investigations have found is that the associate professor is the most unhappy rank And so if you're in that right now and feeling that, that's no surprise. What people are reporting is that once you get tenure, you think it's going to be great, you're going to get to do what you really want to do, and then you walk right into these increased demands for leadership and governance. You're trying often to either start new directions in your research program or create a new push, often without the assistance of things like startup funds or course reductions that you might have in your assistant professor. People are facing often new family demands. Either they might have delayed having a family until after tenure, or since you're older by the time you get tenure, maybe you have increased family demands from your origin. And then there's this kind of disconnect between the expectations for continuing your research productivity at the same time that now you have these increased service demands and sometimes also family. I think what also happens is that because the criteria are often less explicit, people don't go into the ramp with sort of a plan for the next step. And so I'll tell a little bit about my own story, which is that when I was an associate professor, I had these ideas that I wanted to do things that were less conventional, that were brand new directions. I was working on all these projects. I was really excited. I was teaching brand new courses. I was having a great time. And then all of a sudden, like 5 or 6 years had gone by. And one day I was driving to work and realized I have no idea how to get promoted or any plan for it. And I had to pull over on the side of the road and cry. Yeah, but that was a huge turning point because I went right in and wrote an email to someone who had been my mentor for a long time and said, I gotta get a plan, I don't know what I'm doing. And so we created a very specific plan. I went and got a coach, we did time management, I had a checklist, and I sort of put myself on the same kind of regimented set of explicit expectations that you might have when you were trying to tenure. And so kind of my main piece of advice is to find out what the guidelines are, to not think that you don't need mentoring anymore. I think often we either feel like mentoring can often go hand in hand with a kind of surveillance, and we're excited to be free of that, but that's not in the service of your advancement. And then the third thing is that I think the other reason, the way I went from sort of crying to feeling really invigorated and empowered about this is that at this point there was only one tenured woman of color in my department, and I thought that was terrible. I thought we should be hiring women of color. I thought, how can we be a women's studies department like this? And I realized, oh, I have a way. Did I say with tenure we only have one full professor woman of color? And I thought, oh, I have a way to get another full professor woman of color in my department, become one myself. And so I saw it as not just about me, even though it was about my own advancement, I saw it as changing the department. See it change. And then as soon as I got promoted, so, which might bring us to the last thing I want to say, which also echoes what Yolanda said. Why do this? Because you have access to not just power, but being able to bring change.
I'm Heather Bullock. I'm at the University of California at Santa Cruz, and I have moved through all of the ranks there. I'm a full professor currently. I'm also a former department chair, so I definitely come to this meeting with that hat on too. And I would say one of the things that is very helpful about the UC system is that we are constantly reviewed. So assistant and associate professors are reviewed every 2 years. Full professors every 3 years. And so that constant review cycle makes it a little bit easier to grapple with this really difficult question about when do I go up, when am I ready? But there's still that ambiguity because you don't necessarily ever have to go up for full professor. You might just have a merit review. So this is absolutely an issue, and I do think it disproportionately affects women who are reluctant to put themselves up and to really see themselves as, quote, ready. And I guess that's the big question is, what does it mean to be ready? So I'll just touch on a couple of things about this question about what's the difference between going up for tenure and for promotion. And I very much, always focused on going up for tenure. I didn't really ever think very much about what it would mean to go up for full professor. So the things I'm talking about that we're talking about today are absolutely things that I struggled with. And what I see some of the difference between the two is that in going up for associate professor, I think a lot of times it's about establishing or being able to show that you have a trajectory, to see that there's a research path built up. In terms of going up for full professor, I think one of the criteria is really being able to show a broadening impact in the work that you're doing. And I think part of the challenge of that is that sometimes that broadening impact also involves significant service, whether it's service to the university or broader national service, involvement in professional organizations and so forth. And I guess one of my tips would be to suggest to be very strategic in terms of the types of service that you engage in. There can be service that can really be synergistic with your scholarship and with your teaching, and to really try to seek out those kinds of opportunities. For me, being involved in SPICY, for example, is one of the ways that I have built some of that synergy between my interests. And I will say, I do think service is important, and it's a real dilemma because women oftentimes are disproportionately asked to do a lot of the service, and much of that service is not well recognized. And I think one of the things that I hope that we can all work on and talk about is ways to make more visible the invisible service that happens on a daily basis in our departments through service work. One other thing I'll just touch on about what is the real criteria. I think it is so important to have a mentor and to talk to other people. And I don't think oftentimes we have those mentoring relationships at the associate professor level. And so I think it's great that we're coming together in this way. The other thing I would suggest is if you are able to attend promotion meetings, I know departments are structured differently, but if you are able to attend those meetings, go to those meetings and listen. And try to listen to the conversations that take place, because you can get bits of information about what is the overt and what is the covert criteria. So in addition to having those conversations with supportive faculty and others, listen carefully to people as they move through this process. If you can attend those discussions, do so.
I'd like to add that criteria change. So at the 4 universities, at 3 of the universities that I've been at, with the new president, the criteria changed. Where I'm at right now at the University of North Texas, our president is in his 4th year, and it's going to be much harder not only for tenure, but tenure is actually pretty set. Full professor, he has now stipulated that if you don't have a grant over a certain amount of money, to work out. So criteria change, so be aware. So as much as you can have things in writing with an agreement with a department chair that if I do the following things, I'm eligible for a professor in this department. Anything you can have in writing is important.
Well, we're getting questions from the audience. How about speaking a little bit to what time frame is realistic? In my own experience, it seems, having grown up in the University of California system where those steps are there, you're kind of sort of forced to evaluate yourself every couple of years. But now I'm at Penn State and have been there for quite a while, and it is a totally open-ended kind of system. And from my observations, it seems if a person doesn't come up within, say, 6 to 10 years after they have gotten tenure, it becomes infinitely more difficult to get promoted to full professor, because you've been an associate professor longer, people think of you as an associate professor, you're not doing the scholarship that you need, and so more scholarship is required, and it just balloons, it's like that balloon payment on a mortgage, and there is no refinancing. So how about speaking to that issue?
In most places, 6 years is the minimum. 6 years after being tenure. It's the minimum. The places where I've been, if you go, you can go up early, but the bar becomes extraordinary. And I wouldn't recommend it because you're scrutinized so much. Maybe I think in an unfair way. But I would recommend how best to know is look around at people in your college, not just your department, but your college. How did they make it? What did their CVs look like? And that's, again, criteria change, and there's individual dynamics. Those are known as power dynamics, the dynamics within a department that definitely play a role. Never forget that it's not just about your credentials that you have on paper. Those interpersonal dynamics really play a role. But look at what people have done to get to a professor. But usually it's 6 years. Be careful of going up early. But I'd recommend going up in your 6th year if you can. The earlier you do it, the better, I think.
I think that it seems sort of fortunate that you don't have to come up on an exact time frame like you do with tenure. And I guess that's true because it can be more individually tailored. But what I've also seen is that people can really vary in their own self-assessments of whether they're ready in a way that privileges people who tend to think everything they do is great and disadvantages people who have more modest self-appraisals. And that maps onto other kinds of culture. And again, I think this is a place where thinking about it structurally, it can be very empowering because I've seen people who are kind of modest and want to wait. And there was somebody in my own department who told me she thought that being full meant you were sort of old and stodgy and just cooler than associate. And I was like, every year you put this off, you're delaying a raise that's going to be compounded every year and is going to affect your retirement. So when you start to think about when you come up as being linked to pay equity, I think it really can be something that's sort of light a fire. So I agree that going as soon as we're ready is the key.
So I'm going to interject with 2 questions that are sort of related to what you're talking about right now. One is about biases against associates trying to advance after this kind of time period that you're talking about, 6 or 7 or so years. And also a question about if you've been an associate professor for a long time, maybe because of life events or other reasons, you're suggesting it's more difficult. So what should somebody in that situation do in order to go up?
Well, I would suggest that you go talk to your chair and lay this out and say, this is the situation, I'm committed to changing this, what do I need to do, where do I need to be? I think part of the problem is that since often the procedures for deciding who's ready to come up are not explicit and may become informal, your chair might not even be thinking of you as somebody who's trying to get up. And so I think having a plan and then setting up what are the roadmaps? Am I going to check in with you every year? How are we going to get from here to there? And so I think changing the perception of you that your administration may have is
I've mentored people who have been in that situation. And so the first thing I do is help them connect the dots. So usually they've done a lot of different things. They haven't followed, they got tenure and they did all kind of cool things. So then, kind of just pick their brains. How are these things connected? What is the pattern? What is the story that we can tell about your professional work that is cohesive? And usually there is something there because, even though we might do different things, there's a reason we get to do them. There's something that connects the dots. So I help them connect the dots. So I think that if you've been out for a while, it's important to figure out, put together, just think about all that you've done, teaching, publications, service, how do they connect? And what is the story about you as a full professor now? I mean, that's how you frame it.
Sometimes I think there's ways that you can look at something you've been working on and figure out that I leverage this more. So I've been working on this oral history, how can I publish that? And so the mentoring conversation can help with that too.
I would just second both of these comments. I think talking to a department chair or another supportive person is absolutely essential. And I feel like in the majority of these kinds of situations, the person actually oftentimes is ready to go off to a full professor, but just really needs to see that pathway, how to do that, how to connect the work. And I think it is very hard to make up for the lost time. So it's absolutely crucial in terms of pay equity, and power, and all of those things. It's absolutely essential as soon as they're associated.
You know, some of the reasons that I've heard that people don't go off is they're afraid to be evaluated by their peers. You know, it's like, I made so and so angry, or, you know, whatever those dynamics. And sometimes that's what's keeping you from going up. What I say to them is, let's let your story speak for itself, and that's when you really come up together everything you've done. And this is not the time to be humble. This is the time to just not embellish, but take pride in what you've done and speak about it with that kind of pride. Because that'll help you overcome the, you know, I'm putting myself, it's vulnerable. When you're going up for tenure, it's do or die, right? You lose your job. But going up for you're intentionally saying, here, look at me, evaluate me. Look, that's scary. It's really scary for some people. So I encourage you to really to think about what aspect of that might be holding you back, and then step back and work with someone to let your story speak for itself.
Just add one more piece. If there is something that you need to feel ready to go up, to ask for that, because I think it's very common for department chairs and other people in the department to be supportive and to want their faculty to advance. So if you have been very involved in something and feel like you need a course release or you need something to help make this possible, you should make that ask. Do not be shy about doing it. I think that's part of making a plan. But oftentimes, people that have waited to go up for full professor are also the same people that are very reluctant to ask for any type of, support or resources. But it should not be impossible to ask for course release or some other type of support.
Can I just, as moderator, connect some dots here? This is building on Yolanda's point about, that's okay too. Yolanda's point about making the story, and then going back to Liz's introductory remarks where she said she realized she didn't have a plan. It's not just getting more stuff that you need to go for full professor. And I've seen cases, I've been on P&T forever, and I've seen cases where people just they publish lots, but it's like lots of little bitty stuff. And lots of little bitty stuff might have pushed you over the tenure bar. It is not going to push you over the promotion bar. And what people are looking for with full professor is what makes you special? What makes you special in your discipline or subdiscipline? Is it that you have written, if you're at a more teaching-oriented place, you have written the definitive textbook, or you have written, the case studies. If you're at a research very intensive, it's not just did you get the grant, it's do people look to you as the expert on some particular topic, whether it's nationally, internationally. And that goes back to the question of your reviewers. Your reviewers are not going to be assessing your trajectory. They're going to be assessing, this is the person I count on when I meet. This is my go-to person on these issues or this topic. So figure out what's sparkly about, this is the advice I give anyway, what's sparkly about your CV? What is it that you do that really helps you stand out, makes you special and unique, and somebody that this institution is not only going to want to keep because they already decided to keep you, but to have you take that next big step. And frankly, being a full professor is the most liberating thing in the whole entire world, You know, like nobody can get in your face anymore about any kind of promotion. So.
So along with that, let me, okay.
I have like 8 questions.
Okay, yes.
I can. You'll probably answer them. Okay, so I'm going to ask sort of a set of 4 here. The questions are about if you can speak more about specific criteria to the best of your ability, generally, but also at a teaching-focused institution, what would that look like, different from a research institution? Question about Liz, sort of what was in your plan for going up for full, what were the kinds of things that you're in your checklist? And then relatedly, who can you trust to talk about what are the criteria that you need? I'll just paraphrase it that way.
So something about the criteria, one criterion that is becoming more and more powerful, seeming every day, are the numbers, like the H factor, your impact factors, the things that you publish. Know your impact factors. Now, when I review portfolios, that's in everything now. In my institution, people have to put it in, not necessarily for tenure, because for tenure, you don't cite it as much, your work is still new. By the time you work before, your work is set and cited. So you need to know those numbers. And I want to say a little bit about who you talk to. That's really important. It's important to have an advocate, someone that you trust. And because I write about tokenism, I write about attribution and ambiguity. You don't know if feedback that people are giving you is patronizing or a good dog, or if it's real, if it's genuine, and you need someone who will be honest with you, but whom you trust. So they tell you that you're not even close. You know it's not because you're a woman, or because you're black, or because you're brown, or because you're gay, but because they care about you. And then this person should also be able to say, now, here's where you go from here. You don't always find that person in your department. You might, in psychology, you might need to go to another social science department. You might even need to go outside of your university. But if you go outside of university, they need to know enough about the kind of university you're at to give you that information. But I think it's important. It also builds self-confidence to have that kind of
Since I got a specific question for me, I'll take that one. I think my plan had sort of 2 big strategies in it. 3 if you count just having a plan at all. But one was sort of the sparkle factor, which was that I wanted to write a paper that was very visible and very academic, and it place it in some place that would be easy. And so, in terms of impact factor. So I think after I got tenure anyway, I felt like now I'm going to do the kind of work I want to do, and that was sort of a moment where I reframed and thought, well, how do I do this strategically? How do I do it so it's visible for other people who want to do this kind of work and do it so it's very important. So that was a strategic decision, and it also gave me a way to connect the dots with the other things that I was doing that were not going to be so visible or so much. Another thing was just taking a lot of the various things I've worked on that, I had a paper that was almost done. Well, how do I get it from almost done to here? And so, I mean, we all know how to do this if we've gotten tenure, but I think once you don't get tenure, you can feel like, well, I was working on it with that student and she left. Right? So making, maybe sort of taking back ownership for your priorities. I think after you get tenure, it's also easier to let other people's priorities change. And then I just came from a session on engaged scholarship, and I was thinking about a project that I had worked on, which I sort of alluded to it earlier, where we collected narratives from feminist activists, and we were doing that to generate teaching materials, and I had sort of been doing it for its own implicit value. And then when my friend said, when I told her, I'll never get promoted, she said, I thought you were writing a book on that project. And I was like, I don't even know why I was doing that project. Wait, how could I write about that project? And so I leveraged that into some pieces. So my plan was really about sort of connecting the dots, thinking about sort of a mix of sort of high impact and over in the waterfront kind of publications, and then also kind of cash out things that I
In terms of the teaching, if you're a teaching institution, if you write about pedagogy, that's important. That sets you apart from your just in front of the classroom. You are now writing so that other people can know how to teach. So writing about pedagogy is important as it focuses on teaching. Now, I want to say a little bit about how I got the professor. So after I got tenure, this is at Washington State University, I continued to publish. But I also got administrative positions, and I got the week that I got my tenure letter, the provost called me to his office and asked me to be special assistant to the provost. It was great, but the timing was poor because it set back my scholarship. I don't recommend that. But I did continue in administration, so it meant I slept less because I continued publishing. But what my goal was, I'm very passionate about social economic status and the power of an education to change people's lives. So once I got tenure, I focused on how do I now go back and help my community, especially with SES and race intersections. So I applied for and received a $15 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education. And 2 years later, I did another one. So by the time I went up to full professor, I not only had the publications and I've been administrator, but I now have what my heart singing about. And I have over $30 million in grants from the U.S. Department of Education. They were Europe grants when I was the PI. And this was my passion, helping low SES communities, especially the intersections of race and class. So my goal was I always wanted to make a professor, but my plan was just get through what it takes to get through for tenure, and then broaden and speak to my passion more. I was never passionate about experiments. I was passionate about these other bigger questions. So that was important for me. And I think if you're going to continue to be active, you need to do work that makes you want to get up and work that is meaningful to you. And the wonderful thing about being a full professor, as Stephanie said, is it's a lot harder for people to get you face about what you're doing. This is a full professor rank affords you the opportunity to do life-changing work, not just for the community, for our world. And I took that very seriously, and I started it right after tenure. But again, if you pick up an administrative position along the way, it just means you're going to sleep less. Don't do less work. You need to find it.
I would just add, in terms of who to talk to, one of the things that I did when I was going up for full professor is I really basically shopped my CV around. So I went to multiple people in the department, not just people in my social psychology area, but the other full professors in the department to get advice from multiple sources. And I think the scary part of that is that you may receive conflicting advice. So some people might say this looks great, some people might say wait. That can be scary. And that's a likely thing to happen. Because obviously there are differences of opinion and people look at CVs different ways. But I would still recommend that as a strategy because then you have kind of a layout and you're laying the foundation for people knowing that you're thinking about them. And you'll have to take that advice and weigh it and ultimately your decision about what to do. Of course, you're going to talk to your department chair too. My suggestion is to look beyond that, to talk to multiple people. And you might even step outside of your own department as well if you have close colleagues. I think that's really helpful as well. And the thing I would add about teaching institutions, before I was at Santa Cruz, I spent several years at a teaching-focused institution. I never ultimately went up for tenure there. But one of the things that I think is really important that I often said in teaching-focused places is engaging students outside of the classroom as really pivotal. So there's what goes on in the classroom, and obviously teaching evaluations are important and highly valued, but other forms of teaching are also incredibly So really being able to show how you work with students outside of the classroom. Maybe it's engaging students in research, maybe it is community engaged work, maybe it's attending conferences, but really showing that that commitment to teaching extends beyond the class. And I think honestly that should be important in all kinds of institutions.
And there's a really good book called The Teaching Portfolio. So if you're at a teaching institution, you might want to pick up this book and develop a teaching portfolio. When I was at Utah State, we actually had Selden, I think is his name, Peter Selden, I think is his name. We had him come and actually, we took some people we thought were good teachers. I was dean at the time, really good in the classroom, and we taught them how to do teaching portfolio so that they could teach others. And then I would add, some of you probably have a lot of students that you work with, either they're graduate students or they might be in grads. So one mistake I think that people make is working with a lot of grad students and not expecting very much in return. So if you've got a bunch of students, make sure they're writing something that's going to have their name on it. You're leading them, you're mentoring them, and you might even have a written or verbal contract. Yes, I will work with you, but this is my expectation. And let that you defend your thesis. I want an article ready to go to a journal. If it's another a McNair student, whoever, all of this work can be published. So I encourage you to think about the student's work.
And that's a very interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have another question, which is about how to make visible activism that faculty members do at the university related to diversity issues, how to get that viewed positively. Some specific areas of diversity activism are mentoring students of color at predominantly white institution, working on sort of trans student rights and making sure sort of their names are represented correctly, things like that, and even reaching out when inappropriate flyers or information messages go out, reaching out to those departments to inform.
What a good question. Because that comes back to this two-edged sword. In some departments, I think against you, I was not a scholarship. But it's absolutely critical. So we document everything. And for some reason, we have a hard time documenting this kind of work. The hours spent, but also the outcomes. What happened as a result of working with this particular topic, with this particular group? What happened as a result? And if you could write about it, even if it's not, doesn't have to be a top journal, it's not an empirical study, but if you could write about it, even if you write a report to the university, you've documented something that's in writing, it's something that can be used, and it's, if your report is referred to by others, and I had a group in doing, they call it an opportunity analysis committee. We were actually documenting the differences in service and salary and responsibility between men and women in the university. And what we found was that the women were teaching overwhelmingly more than the majority of teams. That had never been documented before. So this group wrote a report that documented that. And now that report is referred to by everybody. So if you can document what you've done, and then the impact will speak for itself as it's used. But
I have a couple suggestions to go on that too. But, you know, you can write about this in your personal statement. So if you have the opportunity to write a personal statement, you should do so, and you should include that work and make it visible. One thing that we have at our university that I think has been really important in terms of recognizing this work is that we all write a diversity statement. It's part of our personal statement, so we write about our research, teaching, and service, and then we have a diverse optional diversity statement, but all of us do write that. So that gives a specific space to write about this kind of work. And then our department letters that the chair writes also recognizes that work. So that might be something, an idea that you can bring back to your own universities, if you don't already do so. And then the other suggestion is when you go up for promotion, you may have the opportunity to list people that can comment on your service and research. So you may have external reviewers who are writing about your research or your teaching or whatever your university requires. You may also have the option to have people who are on campus write about your contributions to campus. You may list people that you have worked on or are aware of these activities about this kind of work that you're doing. And then it's coming from someone else, the work that you're doing. Unfortunately, sometimes review committees value more what others say you're doing than you yourself say you're doing. So that can be a way that you can build in a place for people to
I wish we had a diversity like that. None of the 4 universities were there.
So I'm going to ask two kind of different questions, but I'll throw them out and please address either or both. The first is, what happens if you go up for full and aren't rejected? And then the second is two questions about advice for moving to another institution. Many of you talked about moving, so how did you decide to pursue timing? How did that impact your movement from associate to full?
Well, my university, if you go up and you're turned down, you can't come up to the very next year to sit a second time. So it means you'll have to wait 2 years. So that is something to think about. If waiting a year is going to put you in a significantly stronger situation, then that would be better than coming up too early. I wanted to answer the second question because I think it gets at another reason to come up. The next question about I already have tenure, why should I bother? Coming up and having your materials sent out for review enhances your visibility. So probably you've been making some kind of push to get more stuff out, so maybe your visibility is already enhanced. But then your work is being sent out to the people who are in the field. And so I often see that around the time of promotion is the time that I start getting external offers. And so I myself left the first job. So I think it's a time when you're really thinking about your overall trajectory and your professional development, so it might be a time that makes sense for you. And I guess there's also cases where people get outside offers at full, and when they're still associates. And we would never promote someone simply because they had that offer, but we might put them up off cycle so that we can reach them. So that would be.
So in terms of consequences, I think it's pretty standard. You can go up usually in the next year. But the biggest consequence is people feel humiliated, embarrassed, like failures, heartbroken. They feel betrayed. So the psychological consequences are the biggest consequences. You have your job, you have tenure. The psychological consequences are big. So if you've been denied, I think it's important to try to sit with somebody, a department chair, people you trust, sit back and say, you need somebody else to get you past the I feel betrayed, I'm embarrassed, I'm humiliated. And okay, now let's look at what you got. How did you frame it? Maybe you need to frame it differently. What can we add? Is there something you're working on now that needs to be impressed before you go up again? But whatever you do, you need to get past that psychological harm. It is harmful. It hurts. One of the women at my university was actually a dean, and she got denied. She should have never been a dean in the first place. Those people who did all the service. And she has never gotten over the heartbreak and has not had the courage to go up again. Get the courage to get back on that horse and go up again. But sit with somebody and say, okay, evaluate it. What did I do? Where did I lie? How do I reframe it? What else needs to be added here? And go up again. Go ahead.
My university is very rare to not be successful. The departments do a lot of it. So I think what you're saying is all true, but I would think people walk out of your thinking so unfair. So
It depends.
It's the same in our institution. It does not That doesn't mean it's not that.
Right,
When
that's
it's
absolutely
the unusual,
right.
but if it did happen, I mean, this would be the place where you would really want honest feedback. This is the place where you would really need someone to tell you, you know, that these were the concerns. And that would be a place that I would, again, be looking to multiple people to try to get that.
It does happen in my institution, and usually the gatekeeping should have been done in the department. It was not, because often they pass the department and then they pass the union. So to give you good guidance. Now, there's a word that hasn't been mentioned here that I want to talk about, and this is trying to keep the portfolio together. Equity versus equality. We often talk about equal treatment, but I would like to be able to think about what equity means. What is equitable treatment as opposed to equal treatment? So if you've been doing a whole lot of service, or if you mentor 20 students and the person next to you only mentors 2, and you have 2 graduate students and you've got all the master degree, that's an equity issue. So you need to find a way to talk about that and frame that in a way that especially if somebody else in your department is going up at the same time as you, and their scholarship looks charts compared to yours, this is where you want to really focus on framing your work and think about the equitable nature of it.
Yolanda, Heather, can you talk about finding rules in university?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any perfect time to plan an academic move from one institution to another. I agree, I think it happens very commonly at the time that people are coming out for promotion, because this is a time when you actually have all the materials together. And so you've got the statement, you've got all these things, it makes it a little bit easier to count. I would say, I think for people that are maybe hoping to move from one institution to another, I think sometimes it can be particularly challenging to do that at the associate professor level. And that sometimes if you do want to make a move, it can be easier at the professor level. Not that there are millions of jobs for full professors, but while you've been finding your sparkly facets, you know, you may really be yourself to be moving from one institution to another, and that might be an academic move. It could be into administration. So I think this is another opening that I think comes with being a full professor, is that it can offer you new opportunities to be a director of the center, to move to another institution, to get into administration, or to open up your work and take chances that you haven't. I can say personally, you know, for me being a full professor is it's allowed me to take a lot more chances with the work that I do more of the engaged scholarship that I want to be doing, and, you know, get involved institutionally in pipeline issues as well. So I think it can be very liberating. It can be a pathway.
My moves have been focused on administrative jumps. We became dean, we became senior vice provost. You might look at does somebody have been endowed chair? You want an endowed chair in the some places have a distinguished professor. What do you think? So moving is hard. I think when you're going to move, it's important to ask, what am I getting there that I'm not getting here? Because if your family is happy here, then you might go to your dean and say, this is what I'm bringing to the table, and are you raising money for an endowed professorship that I would be able to do? Some things could be happening right on your campus that you're a good fit for. So ask yourself very carefully, when you're getting there, that if you got here, you'd stay, because life is pretty good here. Other times, however, you know, there might be changes in administration. That's sometimes a good time to move when you don't like the path of the new administrators, especially if you're being your child. So, but I think it's important to think carefully because it's so hard, it's psychologically hard to move, and it costs money. So if you can get here, if you would get there, say, try to get it.
So I have two more questions from newly tenured faculty members who are thinking about promotion. One is, what do you do if you're burned out after the tenure process? How do you get your group back? And then the second question is about sort of, should an individual start asking these questions about what is the criteria for getting promotion now, and how to do so in a hostile environment?
Well, how many of you have a developmental leaves available in your institution? Developmental leaves, sabbaticals? We're not allowed to call it sabbaticals. It's what's called. Our legislature doesn't like the word sabbatical. Texas. So most people, and I encourage, if your university has a sabbatical, the time to go up is after tenure. And sabbaticals are usually, if you don't know, you need to look it up at your institution. There are almost all tenure track people eligible. In some places like yours too, but it's very rare. It's your full salary. In most places, it's your full salary for one semester. And 3/4 of your salary or half a salary for a full year. But at least that half a semester. And the people I've mentored, everybody I've mentored, they submit their portfolio for tenure, start writing your developmental leave package. I want them to go for developmental leave. They need it. You need it. Take the time. And if your university doesn't have it, maybe this is the time to try to negotiate a course release because you'll work on blah blah that your department or something. We'll have you get that time. But if you can get a leave, what else to get your group back? It's a time to reflect and have tenure. What can I do that's going to make my heart sing that I did not feel like I could do before? Until I went up for tenure, I actually felt like I had to have data. And I really like qualitative work. I did a lot more qualitative work once I got tenure.
We have a program that we offer for people who are newly tenured that is thinking about what does this rank mean and how it's important. It's a one-day workshop, and we do a lot of different things in there, but one of the things we do is this exercise where you think about the different spheres of your life. So there's your research and teaching and your service, but then there's also your family or other interests outside. And think about what are the places where those things intersect, and then to think about those as sort of that is the sweet spot that can help you start to pick out which of these many opportunities are coming up to pursue, and how do I use this also as a map to figure out, well, this sounds fun and maybe also cool, but I'm going to have to say no to that. So that's a way to kind of focus your energy, prioritize what you want to do, and then not walk right in and get yourself overloaded with all the intentions that are. Another thing that we do in there, and it's usually the most popular thing we do, is that the provost comes and speaks with the newly tenured people about what it means to be a tenured faculty member. Now you are part of the governing faculty. And they do a lot of Q&A about what are the priorities. For a lot of people, it's the first time they ever got to sit down and talk with the provost. It makes people realize that it's not just, I didn't get fired, or it's not just, I can't get fired. It's also, now you get to share in sort of making the vision and the mission of the university. You probably can't just walk in and get an appointment with the provost, but it might be interesting to think if there's a group of you, if that's something you could request to meet with the dean or the provost and start to talk about how do I get more involved, where is it going, how do I start to kind of step up to demand some opportunities.
And some universities have internships because you're busy. I know you're interested in social justice, so therefore you're interested in administration because we need people who are interested in social justice and administration. So you might look at those internships. This might be a time to. I did an ACE fellowship. That's when I met Stephanie. I shadowed Graham Spanier before that trouble. I shadowed Graham Spanier for a year as an ACE fellow. That's a year paid off Your university pays your salary if you go shadow somebody else. I did hers. So these are times for you to you've done your tenure thing. Now think about places where you could go. The Harvard has a great program. And these programs help you think about, is this for me or not? Because you're having to do all this kind of work. And it really does help you answer that question, is this for me? These programs help me immensely. And you get away, you reflect, and think about something different.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo all of these suggestions. I do think it's important to take some kind of break or some kind of celebration of tenure, and really appreciating that. I do think having a strategy, which I did not have a strategy for getting to full professor. Looking back, I think good to have a strategy. So I don't think it's too soon, almost immediately to be thinking about what are the next steps and what does it really mean at my institution to go up for full professor. What do I need to have that full package? And I think if there are ways that you can get there that are enjoyable and that allow you to take more chances in your work, I definitely started doing multiple work after my tenure. I got more involved with community organizations. All of those things were really synergistic for me, and they made me excited to go on, and they were really energizing. And so I do think you've got to find what energizes you, because it's a marathon. I mean, this is a long, long, almost never-ending marathon in a lot of ways. And so you want to build yourself up for that. I do think it's important to think strategically. And do what you can to stay on track, but to celebrate and to strategize. The question about the hostile environment, I'm not sure any of us answered that question.
This will be our last one to address the hostile environment. Could we do that?
Do you want us to answer this?
If you get, I mean, people don't seem to be rushing out the door. So if you could take just a couple of minutes and then we will wrap up.
I think this is a really tough question about how to ask. The question is how to ask about criteria and find out what the criteria is in a hostile environment.
And about readiness.
About readiness, yes. There are. If there is someone, and I don't know, it's hard to know where the hostile environment part is in this question, but I would look for the campus ally. It might be outside of your department. Your campus might have an academic personnel office, which would be a confidential place that you could go to. I would look also to mentors within Division 35 and SWISI to share your CVs where you talk about your concerns. I think I would look for people on your own campus, but I would also look outside of your campus to supportive networks. And again, I would try to seek out information from multiple sources. But if there is a resource on your campus that is charged with this kind of work that you can talk to confidentially, I would absolutely.
In every one of my administrative positions, including dean, the dean of the largest colleges, and the senior vice provost, faculty came to me. That question. Hostile department. I'm not sure we the right answers. And I did. And I think I'm not speaking on term when I say that I think most deans or associate deans or even the Post Office of Faculty Success, they want to help. They want people to be successful. If you can go up and full professor, they really want that. Because that means you're going to continue to be productive. Don't discount the administrators if your department is hostile. Look to the associate dean or whatever the area is. Look to the dean. Look to the senior vice provost or faculty success or the vice president of faculty, whatever the titles are. Get to know some of those titles and get to know some of those people. And make an appointment with them. I've never known of anybody, even when I was functioning as provost, I never turned down faculty. Never. And I think that's pretty common. We don't turn down faculty.
Thank you very much to our panelists and to our technical people here, Asia and Joy, and to Isis, who did all of my work as moderator. And we want to advertise that our third Institute for Academic Feminist Psychologists will be coming June 2018. This is specifically for pre-tenure people or people just tenured. And we have some alums in the room, so please talk to the alums. And it will be in Miami in June, but early June. So not on the water. So it'll be really wonderful. And thank you all for attending. If you would like to join some of us for lunch, I don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to just do it.
One of the tables where the lunch is.
One of the tables where the...
I'm going to be leading a next part of intersectionality
Oh,
in
yeah.
October of 2018. Yeah, so please contact me. We're going to ask Missy to talk about it with your next part. It's like 10 people. So it's going to be Faye Cosby's giving us the home. So next part's going to have its own house in Santa Cruz. So you don't have to pay for living or food, or you just have to pay to get there. It's going to be an intersectionality.
Thanks very much.